What exactly would happen if Captain America was the one to use the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones to wipe Thanos and his army out? So this question has been brought up on social media and the internet for a few months now, showing the alternative possibility if Captain America was one to hold the stones and the gauntlet instead of Iron Man. So to set up this scenario, let's say this takes place just after Thanos has KO'd Captain Marvel, and a lot of differences will occur here. For one thing, Thanos will have not fully KO'd Cap. He would not be knocked out for the remainder of the fight. This is how he's also able to manage to get the stones. Tony, with the suit very severely damaged, gets up and looks at Doctor Strange. Strange would then put up the one thing to Tony, telling him this was the only scenario where the Avengers win. Tony, now knowing what he must do, heads straight for Thanos and the stones. However, something drastic happens here. While Tony does manage to get the stones out of the Nano Gauntlet and into his own armour, Thanos would knock Tony at the arm, where the gauntlet with the stones in it would detach, and Tony would be knocked out for the rest of the fight. Thanos would then say, "I am inevitable," and snap his fingers as normal. However, nothing happens. Thanos would then look around in shock as Captain America, wielding his broken shield and the Infinity Gauntlet, turns around and says, "I can do this all day." Tony, Strange, and some of the other Avengers look on in amazement at what Cap is trying to do. Cap then ultimately snaps his fingers. Cap would then be hit with a blinding flash of white light, and he would wake up in a strange realm. Cap wakes up in Soul World, and he tries to figure out where exactly he is, but then he finds a familiar face. Cap would be greeted by his longtime love, Peggy Carter, who tells Steve that she is extremely proud of him and that he can come home now. Of course, Cap would not survive the attempt to save the world, as we know the stones can actually cause a lot of damage to people, even Thanos, and he is immensely powerful on his own. So the funeral scene would actually take place with Tony in Cap's place, and instead of Tony Stark's original arc reactor, what's left of Cap's broken shield would be floating out onto the lake. And everyone would look on, and in place of Harley Keener from Iron Man 3, I believe that Sharon Carter would take Harley's place. Since Steve met Sharon after, well, she was the one person outside of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers that he really felt a connection to since Peggy. So the question remains, what exactly would happen next? With Cap dead, no one would need to travel back in time. However, I think Tony would still need to return the stones in some way, and with the help of Banner and possibly Hank Pym, the quantum tunnel could actually be rebuilt, and possibly with Doctor Strange's help, the stones can be returned to their rightful places in the timeline to stop these, quote, nasty alternative realities that Banner once said to never exist. So basically they're clipping the branches. However, another question remains, would Tony go back and change anything? I don't really think so. And I'll explain why. Tony's parents dying is possibly a fixed point in the MCU timeline. If Tony's parents never died, then a large chunk of Civil War wouldn't take place. So that means Tony could have had the chance to open up another alternative reality, and Tony presumably could have repaired the Mark 85 and some of his other suits that were damaged. However, in terms of Captain America's shield, I do think Tony would want to repair the shield in memory of his fallen friend, and how exactly would he actually repair the shield? I think Tony, T'Challa, and Thor would collaborate to rebuild the shield. Tony contributing some, presumably a small fraction of Stark technology, presumably the magnet retrieval things from Age of Ultron. T'Challa would, of course, contribute the vibranium to the shield, and I think Thor would actually manage to get some Uru metal, presumably from Nidavellir, and have that melted down to build the new shield, and it would be given the classic Captain America paint job. The question does remain, who would Tony give the shield to? I have a strong feeling that Bucky would be given the shield by Tony. Now, I'm going to have to do quite a bit of explaining to get around this. Now, yes, I do believe Tony would still hate Bucky for killing his parents, but I think Tony would also understand that that was Bucky during the Soviet era of his time as the Winter Soldier. He was being brainwashed by Hydra at the time. Tony says he's willing to build bridges with Bucky, and Tony then decides to give Bucky the shield. Now let me explain here. It is said in official Endgame canon that Bucky's mind was still damaged from the whole Winter Soldier thing. Now, the reason I think Bucky would get the shield in this alternative timeline is because Steve died, and presumably Steve would want his closest friend to continue his legacy, because really Bucky is the only person Steve knows that could match him in combat. And obviously Black Widow would still die, so yeah. This would mean Bucky becomes the new Captain America, and Tony manages to craft Bucky a new suit, similar to Cap's one from Age of Ultron, except one of the sleeves is cut off for his cybernetic arm. Or perhaps not, it could be the full suit, but Bucky still has the metal arm. Now, there's still a bit more explaining to do. What would happen with the Falcon and Winter Soldier series? Now, I have a simple explanation for that. Instead of the plot being the government not wanting Sam Wilson to be Captain America, the plot would this time be not wanting a Russian terrorist to be Captain America, which obviously would make the government pretty pissed. And presumably the government would actually be mad at Iron Man, because, well, he gave Bucky the shield. And I do think this could actually draw in Thunderbolt Ross in some way, though I'm not so sure about it. So those are my thoughts on what would happen if Captain America was to wield the Nano Gauntlet and save the universe. Do you guys possibly agree with this theory? If you do, then, well, that's good. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm going to say by this point. I'm going to ask you to hit the like button, click the subscribe button, ring the bell so you don't miss any of our other videos. And, of course, I'm going to tell you to do that, but just a quick thing. There's going to be a small animated Doctor Who special at Christmas time on the channel. Now, it's not connected to the official Doctor Who series in any way. It's connected to the Crafting Bros series. So it's connected to all the Doctor Who episodes you see on the channel. Now, the episode takes place after the episode that's coming out, and it takes place before the finale of the series. So I just want to throw that out there, because once the whole series is out on the channel, you're going to want some kind of explanation for that. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for now, and I will probably see you soon with presumably the next episode of Superpower Matchups, because that episode is edited and completely done now. See ya.